Ooh, great domestic conversation right before this video. My wife being like, why don't you go to the office? And I'm like, because I want to go to the car. She's like, why are you shooting a video in a car instead of in your office? The answer? There's nothing more magical than a car video, especially when that car video has to do with Joey Murphy. Before we dive into Joey Murphy, I want to go back to Invisible Supply by Joel Goldsmith. We've been talking about this book a lot. We've been talking about Goldsmith a lot. And that's this. I'm single-handedly bringing this book back for people. No, I know other people know about this book, but this book, Invisible Supply, I'm telling you, if you're into spiritual sounding stuff, and you're into this idea that supply is within, which I know not everybody watching is. There's, again, we often discuss about, just using very practical psychological language, the kind of language that Coué uses, discussing our imagination to, manifest better things inwardly and outwardly in our lives. I know there's a lot of you that just like that aspect, but if you like the more spiritual sounding aspect, check out this Invisible Supply book by Joel Goldsmith. It summates these deep ideas about how wealth is within. Dare I say it, maybe better than any book I've ever read. Maybe. It's extremely, extremely good, Invisible Supply. It's not an easy book by any stretch of the imagination. What Goldsmith's talking about is not easy. But it's in my opinion, if you like the spiritual angle and are, consider yourself, very spiritual, it's worth checking out. I really, really recommend it. So I want to read that first, an excerpt from this book first, and then we'll get into the power of your subconscious mind if we have time. I think we will. Goldsmith writes in Invisible Supply, the realization came that since this allness constitutes individual being, our good does not come to us from outside. It has to be contacted from inside. That immediately changed my understanding, and it changed my life. As you know, God has a way of meeting our need at every level. Soon thereafter, I came across a poem by Robert Browning in which he states that we must not try to open an entry for good to come into us from the without, but rather we must open out a way for the imprisoned splendor within us to escape. In other words, all of the good, all of eternality and immortality, all of Godhood, all of Christhood, all of spirituality is embodied within us. But we must open out a way for the imprisoned splendor to escape. Watch the miracle take place as you realize that this splendor of God, this infinite love, this infinite life, this divine wisdom, this spiritual grace, the Comforter, is already within you. This splendor of God that multiplies loaves and fishes, that heals the sick and preaches the gospel to the poor, that opens the eyes of the blind, is already within you. You no longer look outside to persons. That's a deep teaching. And we're not going to read any Joseph Murphy today. That excerpt's too deep to read anything else after that. We talk about nowness a lot on this channel, in my podcast, how when we're truly present, there's something there that's naturally life-giving. And a lot of this practice is bringing that out. It doesn't get any more clear than that, does it? Really? This isn't about a technique or a certain way of getting something. You are you, which makes you God, which makes you Christ. Or whatever language you want to use, if we look at it this way. Very profound. It's the kind of information, and in general, the kind of information that Goldsmith talks about in Invisible Supply. That you don't intellectually, rationally try to make too much sense of, but you just sit with it. And recognize what you are and what you always have been. And that's that deep peace.